Oh, hi Peter. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm good. Do I pronounce your name correctly? This how you pronounce it in Sweden? Peter.
Say again?
Peter Strömberg.
Peter? Yeah, that's excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very close. Very close.
I'll try my best. I was learning German in the school, so I used all my skill I have. Okay. Would you mind to introduce yourself for people who don't know you?
Yeah. So I'm Peter, also known as Pes, and I'm in love with Clojure, and I have been using it in anger for almost 5 years soon, I think, something like that. And I guess my claim to fame is that I created Calva to give myself a good Clojure environment in VS Code.
Yes. So soon Calva will have 7 years, and soon you will be a maintainer of Calva for 7 years, which is great. I would say Calva is definitely one of the most used environments to develop Clojure in the world.
Yeah, it's tied with cursive, so as
It's
the
a second.
second.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, so I
And
think it's
it's
Emacs.
first.
I don't know if something like that, and then cursive and Calva has 23% each,
Yeah,
something like
code
that.
me in. I moved from Emacs or from SpaceMax to Calva
Yeah.
myself. I love SpaceMax, but I love Calva and VS Code a little bit more.
Happy to have you.
So after those 7 years, you have learned a lot on how to develop extension for VS Code, how to develop an environment for Clojure. What would you do differently if you started today?
Yeah, so that is such an excellent question. If I actually started today knowing everything I know, I don't know. It's hard to phrase it in terms of how to do it differently. But at least I would know what to do and where like the important things are. I would know a bit about how to build it, and I would also know a bit more on where I should have said no.
Yeah.
Right. So Calva can sometimes be a bit hard to maintain because I have said yes to too many things. So I would go a bit stricter on what goes in there and think a bit more about things that go in there. But I don't know. It's also my personality. That's the way I am, right? This is cool.
Yeah,
I will do it. Right? I'm just.
That's all right.
I'm that kind of. So maybe I can dream about being more restrictive, but I would be wiser. So at least that when it comes to and also if I would do it today, I would build it like purely in Clojure script, so there would be no like mix like Calva is today.
But this helped you to become an expert JavaScript developer as well.
I'm much better in TypeScript and JavaScript than I would have been otherwise. So that's cool. And I don't have anything against those languages. It's dynamic. It doesn't get in your way. It lets you like express yourself. It's not as expressive as Clojure maybe, but they are great. They are not interactive enough for my taste. But otherwise, they are fine. So, but I'm like getting spoiled by the Clojure REPL and interactive programming. So that has started to dawn on me. Like when I do this in TypeScript, I restart the extension, and oh, that didn't work. So then I restarted and changed it and restarted again. And that cycle, it's madness, really. And while in the Clojure script part of Calva, it is interactive, right? The extension changes as I evaluate stuff, right? So I would
You're right.
for more of that.
In the, let's say, long-term future, do you think you will slowly, evolutionary, iterate with the existing code base, or is there going to be, is it was Om next, will there be Calva next, which will be a revolutionary change where you will throw away all of those yeses that should have been nos?
Yeah. I don't think that I have enough time for that kind of rewrite. So Calva started out as a really scrappy fiddle, right? So it was just very barely supporting what I did, and from there, user input and my own usage of it has improved very incrementally, right? So not a revolutionary change you're talking about, just very incrementally. And all of the sudden, some 4 years into the project, I just realized that this is actually kind of a big thing, right? That I'm hoping, and that has just grown. So, but if I would come in a position where I could work full time with it, then I would immediately start that as a side project and have it. But today I don't have the bandwidth for
I know,
something
I
like
can
that.
imagine. At the same time, so you are one of the few people who is actually developing an ID, or let's say the main plugin for an editor. Most Clojure developers are building web applications. How would you say that how is it different, the experience of developing an extension in comparison with building a web application, for example?
Yeah, so some people build extensions that go across editors. So I guess they have it, don't have, but I only make an extension for VS Code. So I need only to think about VS Code, but then there are some differences between the operating systems, but they are quite small. So when developing web applications, I mean, almost half of the time goes to make it work in all the browsers, and it's a kind of, it's much more fun just working with the feature as such, and not having to think so much about compatibilities with different platforms and stuff like that. So most of my extension development is I'm working with the feature, and I use TypeScript and JavaScript a bit like I would use Clojure. So it's very little of the language in the way of what I do as well. Yeah. So I can just think about that. This would be user value, and then I work on that. So I think it's more fun. It's also in VS Code. It's a node environment, so that also makes. For instance, tests and stuff like that, they just run right on the environment. There is no browser test running and some other stuff like that. I just see the test run when I hit save. So it's also very much working with the extension which I'm using for building the extension, right? So I'm actually building on the same thing that I'm using for building, and that's been very nice feeling.
Like the feeling of back then there was those Lisp computers, or when you implement something in Emacs, or for example in Smalltalk, you can change your environment and interacts immediately, which Most of the time is great when you don't break something. So
Yeah, that kind of experience. So developing an extension is a bit like that. And if I had more of the extension written in Clojure script, it would be even more like the Emacs experience of it. But we have this Joyride thing, of course, that actually brings this user scripting of your editor, modifying your editor as you're using it.
Yes, we will get to Joyride, so which is another extension for VS Code you are building. And I see you are really one of a few people who are building extension to editor, and so you might be an expert on editors. And I wonder what was your first editor, and what was the, let's say, first editor you used for a very long time?
Yeah. So the first editor I used for a very long time, that was VI. So I was working on SCO System 5 computers. This is a long time ago, and they had VI. That's what you used only if you weren't using ED directly, which I also did sometimes. But so VI was my first editor that I used a lot, and I brought it with me for almost until I picked up the VS Code, I would say. So and I had used a lot of other editors in a while, and VI became Vim mostly for
then maybe NeoVim or one of those.
Now people use this NeoVim, which I'm very curious about. Actually, it sounds like a very sweet environment. Actually, I think it is the sweet spot for people like me. I think it would because I have like this VI readers, and I like to hack my editor. So they have this. I think they hack it with Fennel, right?
So one of the things is so VI or Vim now is that scrappy fiddle inside, if I would say. NeoVim is much cleaner. They know what they are building because it have been tried. So people want this Vim experience, which evolved over decades. One of a few apps that exist for decades, right? And at the same time, they added like architecture where you can build various front ends for that, and they added Lua. Vim script is terrible language.
That's such improvement on this.
Yes. Like, I was starting with Quick Basic and then Turbo Pascal. Both of them, especially Quick Basic, is a terrible language. So I respect that people can build many things in terrible languages. It's just Vim script. It's very hard to like it. While Lua, I know people who love Lua. For how dynamic the language is. So if we could say, like you have worked with VI, then Vim, VS Code. What is VS Code for you? How do you look at it?
Yeah, I mean it's obviously my editor of choice. From the beginning, it was like just when I learned Clojure, I started to was introduced to Clojure. I would say those people that introduced me, they were using Emacs, and we were doing mob programming and stuff. So, but to me, I really never grokked with Emacs. It was a bit maybe steep learning curve. I don't know. It was, but I really grokked with the way the cider part of it, right? So when I did Clojure without my colleagues, then I think I used Vim and this fireplace a bit and tried to get that to work, but it wasn't enough like cider. So then I happened to stumble across VS Code, which was not super new then, but it was quite new. And okay, this was snappy on my machine, and I could understand it. I didn't need to learn anything. It worked like my word processor or something like that, right? So I think to me it was very, very quick. Like, yeah, this is how I want to work. I don't even use Vim.
Yeah.
I just use the standard stuff. So I think it's very natural fit for me for some reason. Just great. And now also, I mean, it's where Calva runs. I can't really leave.
So
that's where I am.
But it must be more than that, just an editor. When you are building an extension, then you started building Joyride, which turned up. So tell people what is Joyride for you?
Yeah. So on the part, VS Code is like more than an editor in a sense. So I think Emacs people like recognize this, that they do a lot of stuff in editor. Like people call it like jokingly an operating system, which is not really a joke. That's kind of what it is, and that's how I use VS Code as well. I do everything in it, and that's, I guess, where Joyride comes in, because Joyride means that I can use it for other things than it was built for, without having to build a full extension for it or find some extension out there that does almost what I want to do, but not buy it, and also does a lot more stuff that I don't want it to do, right? So it like clutters my environment. Instead, I can just write a small Joyride script that changes how VS Code behaves, but in user space. It's not an extension. It's just like I can evaluate an expression, and my editor starts to work differently. And so I can make this script, and it does exactly what I want to do. It doesn't nothing more, and exactly what I want to do, as long as the VS Code API allows it. So that's what I want to take things. That people take more joy in hacking their editor, and not just like throwing in all these. I think the VS Code marketplace has 45,000 language extensions, and even more extensions for other stuff. And I mean, you can find for one use case, like I needed a timer, just something that I could start and stop, and I think I found hundreds of them. And I tried them one after one, and they didn't work exactly what I wanted. I wish it was like 10 lines of Joyride code, and I had my timer, so it worked exactly as I wanted.
What I wanted to ask you is if you can give some examples how you use Joyride actually.
Yeah. So one thing is for when I do presentations, then I have a small Joyride script that I call next slide. So VS Code is very good at rendering Markdown as HTML, or it rendering in the view. So it has preview for Markdown that is super excellent. So I can write all my slides in Markdown. And VS Code also supports that I can attach a slide sheet to it, so it looks like I want it, and stuff like that. And then I have this next slide script that knows all about which order the slides are, and I use a small Eden file for that, and then I can just use the arrow keys or a clicker to go through the slides. And I also have added to that, so I can create notes for a slide. So So and then I can switch between the notes and the slide very easily when I work with the presentation, and then at any point I can just turn all these notes to a PDF and print it.
Yeah.
So it's so that's like one example.
That's great. Exactly.
How I use it. And then I can also use it for automating like stuff. Calva is very configurable. It has a lot of, but for some special workflow, it might not have that. And it's also on that habit of saying no to ideas and requests that comes in. I can very often just tell people, you can do that with Joyride. So I can say no, but they still have a way to solve their use case. So, and to that part also, it is very good for prototyping. So I can have an idea for an extension maybe, or some new Calva feature or whatever, and I can just use Joyride to feel if it's worth it, or if I have the right idea of it, if I need to tweak it, if I should just forget about it.
Basically,
instead of doing all that other dance to make an actual extension and stuff like that, I can just so it's very good prototype.
Yes, so basically instantly extend how VS Code behaves, just to make an experience of how it might be if this was an extension or part of an extension, so you can see it for yourself. That's great. It's like very fast. They have to get the feedback.
I think way to think about Joyride is that it turns VS Code into something very Emacs-like. And the idea to it came from an Emacs guy, right? So I was actually Borg dude that said, like, actually, I think we can make VS Code scriptable. And then so we did Joyride together. So Joyride is running on this small Clojure interpreter. So it's a special version of that, in a sense, that's powering this, and so it's a super wonderful environment.
Yes,
actually.
When you say that you like want to feel for yourself how it is when you extend the IDE, I can understand. So between 2012 to 2020, you moved from technology into product management. And it seems to me, really, you are the type of person who is thinking about how the user is going to use the app. But did you work as product manager, or how did it help you now as a developer when you are building products, even when they are open source and free? Is this something where you feel it helped you?
I think it was what made me. I mean, people have different journeys to become something that they think about as a senior developer. And for me, I felt like I've been doing all this just hacking, and I didn't think about myself. So even if I worked and earned my food doing programming, I still didn't really feel like a real programmer for some reason. I don't know why. But the product manager part of it. So when you combine someone who can program and someone who thinks in terms of product, that I think that's what I can say, like straight to your face, that I'm a senior developer now, and I think that's this combo that I think it's very powerful and helps me a lot. Well, also where I came from was when I started programming, and also my first jobs as a programmer, I was very much in charge of what was going to be developed. I was a bit like a product manager and a programmer. because places I worked with, no one could program really, but me. So if they had some idea, okay, Peter, can we do this? Yeah, we can do it. I had some idea, so that was. But then things like shifted, and at some point I found myself working with other product managers, and I was a coder doing what they said I should do. But I was not the one like thinking up the things, and I think I had it like that for many years without realizing what it did to me, and that I didn't like it. So at some point I realized, God, I'm a product person. I'm not a coder. So then I switched to being a product manager instead, and it took me quite many years of product management instead to realize, hell, I'm not a product manager. I'm a coder, because then I was at one of my product manager jobs. The engineers brought in Clojure. And I got very curious about how they were developing things. I would bring my product manager issues to them, and they would bring them to what looked like their editor and ask their editor. And the editor came back with some answer to them, and we discussed it, and that intrigued me so much. So I ended up doing a lot of mob programming together with them, and I just realized this is so fun. I want to do this. So then I switched back to being like a programmer for food. But luckily, I also sent Calva out into the world, and my product has had a product to take care of. So now I'm both, right? And also as people, I'm a contractor, so when people contract me for doing coding work, they also get this product mind, and know they can trust that I see at least the issues. It's not always that I can solve them, or I will solve them myself, but I can see, like, should we really do this? Maybe the user's need looks like this. Actually, we could solve it with this thing instead, and that will solve many more use cases. So I have this combo that helped me with that. So I think Calva keeps my product management inside me very happy, because I get to talk to users, try to think about what they are actually asking, trying to hear how they are using my product, and I can see, okay, maybe I didn't know that you could think about Calva, this feature of Calva, that way, and so I think that's the most rewarding thing that I've experienced, like all this.
I must say that it's not automatic for developers to care if the product is successful. While for product people, I would say it is very important for the product to be successful, but sometimes they don't care how the code that's not visible to the user looks like underneath. But when you connect both, which is what you call senior developer, it might actually connect that you want to build a product people use, and at the same time care about the internals of the thing to be clean and maintainable long term, especially if you are the one who has to maintain it long term, right? And very interesting point that what got you back to programming was Clojure, actually. How do you perceive Clojure? If somebody who is not a Clojure developer and have heard about Clojure for the first time, how would you explain it? And how would you motivate him or her to give Clojure a try?
Yeah, that's something I like. I find myself doing, like trying to do a lot. I guess it is when you love something, you want to share that love. So, but I haven't found the silver bullet for it yet. Maybe there is no. But to me, I like to highlight how fun it makes my work, and it makes it fun, like in several ways. So the interactive programming is fun. I mean, just evaluating something and seeing the application morph into this new thing because I evaluated that stuff. It's a jolt like going through my body when I do that. So really like that. But it's also that like, the language as such is so small in a sense, and so there's so little nonsense in it. So I can go at my problem and solve my problem without trying to minding so much about pleasing the language. So that is fun as well, and it altogether makes me productive. So I'm super productive designing. So that also makes it's fun because it's not fun to just bang on something for hours and hours and not get anywhere, right? So getting somewhere quickly, so you get feedback and have a new, like you're in a new place with more information quicker. That is fun. So, yeah, and to me,
how I perceive you, you look a lot like a dynamic language person. So I suppose if you weren't using Clojure, you would probably use something like Elixir or language like this, right? Because of the quick feedback loop and an ability to change things fast, see the change immediately, and so on. And what do you think is the future of Clojure?
Yeah, I think Clojure has a very bright future. Maybe it will never be like a mainstream language. I don't think it needs to be. It's not going anywhere. That's for sure. We are like accruing new people that know that this is how they want to work. Even though a lot of other programming languages has like seen some good parts and picked them, so it has also helped other languages become better. Even so, it's still like a very unique programming language environment. So it will definitely, but I think, to my mind, I can't see a reason it will actually at some point grow. It will need some kind of killer application, maybe something like that. But I see that this happening. I think Rich said that Clojure is for optimists, and I'm an optimist. I'm also very optimistic about
One
the
thing
language.
I noticed is when you were speaking about how happy you are and how much joy it is to work in Clojure. Clojure is a language that's, even when it's very simple, I think it's designed in a way that senior developers value the decisions in the language. Why is it done the way it is designed, the way it's designed? But there is way more junior developers than senior developers, right? Because many people learn, not everybody becomes a developer, and maybe like even when I do interviews with candidates, I must say in Clojure world, I can accept in almost everyone who goes first, let's say through our first screening, while when I interview JavaScript candidates, I'm not lying, maybe 20 times worse and 20 times more difficult to find a good developer. So once somebody arrives to the point that the developer finds Clojure appealing and he wants to switch over and become a Clojure developer, usually it's a sign that this person is very senior developer. And I would say the future of Clojure is probably not going to be like a language that's used by tens of millions of developers and taught in schools, even when it's a shame because it's a very well designed language. But there always will be a group of extremely senior developers who find the language, see the values behind it, and enjoy the work, and are very productive in it because of its expressivity. But not only that, Haskell is expressive, Idris is expressive, Agda is expressive, but Idris is not practical. Clojure running on JVM or JavaScript ecosystem, CLR, Dart, it is very expressive language that has all the ecosystem, and the combination makes a huge difference. Now you have,
I think the practicality and it's so pragmatic. Like maybe that message actually needs to be sent out more. So I think there are still people that think they understand the Clojure very different, but they equal that with it being some academic like toy or something like that, right? But that's not what it is. It's a super practical and pragmatic language, like built for building stuff.
Yeah, so there is always a delay between the idea occurring in academia and then the thing becoming practical. And functional languages have been those like pioneers that have been trying various theoretical topics or theories from computer science. And sometimes it's not really practical, but Clojure is not like this. It's very practical language, extremely practical language that if you want to do Clojure in object-oriented manner, you potentially could. If you want to do imperative programming, you could. If you want to do functional programming, it is possible. But at the same time, many people will connect functional programming with monads and ceremonies you have to do to prevent certain categories of bugs, which might be quite rare. So you do a lot of work for a little bit of value, which happens in different scenarios in Rust as well. And Clojure is nothing like this. It helps, like if you want to do a side effect, there is absolutely no ceremony around it, and you just do a side effect and it happens. And we value immutable data, but if you want or if you need to mute the data, you can. You can have transient variables and you can modify them just like in any other language. So it's very practical and everything is possible. But there is some default way, which is also very practical, but also prevents plenty of errors, which I think is a good reason to give Clojure a try. Now, if we will go back to you, you have been very, very active open source contributor. I was looking at your GitHub, and you have been using GitHub for many years, but since 2018, you constantly have been adding more and more contributions years over year. And in the last year, you did, as of yesterday, 4,284 GitHub contributions in the last year. And you are not slowing down. You are basically every year you do more contributions than the year before. How are you carry on, and how does your day look like?
Yeah, so I think a reason that it looks like that, like I'm actually like increasing, is that I'm having fun. So I can't really keep myself from doing it. 2018 was the year Calva was released. I was I was doing it for myself, and I just like dropped it on the VS Code marketplace in case someone else also wanted to use it. But it immediately took on. I think it was just a week, and I had 1,000 downloads, and I realized that I had like a decision to take at that point. So I said like, okay, Peter, you need to either pull this extension off the marketplace or like all in and support it. Because that was the situation I came from, was like unsupported Clojure extensions, and that was uncomfortable. So I didn't want Calva to be one more of those. It was also very like easy to take the decision. Like it seemed fun, people liked it. So I think I made like a public promise. I will make it. And then like the community is we haven't talked about like the Clojure community. That is very special in a way that it encourages people who try to do something, and also like the toolsmith community around Clojure. They like welcomed me and like asked me like proactively, Peter, do you need any help? And so it was it was super fun from the start. I had a bit of Calva development that was pretty long. That was not, I can't characterize as fun. That's a long story, so it's for another day. But since I didn't know what I was doing, I was digging some quite big holes for myself, and but I came up, and it was fun again. And since then, I have been enjoying it. Like
so
100%.
go ahead.
I want to hear what you were thinking.
Based on the committers.top/Sweden, so you are one of the top committers in Sweden. I have checked the website, multiple countries. There is no country in the world where you wouldn't be one of the biggest open source contributors. And definitely, I think it's likely that you are, let's say, in top 200-300 open source contributors based on contributions on GitHub in the world. So, and still, it's not your like full-time job. So that's why I'm asking how does your day look like?
That is a very good question. Just on that site that is you shouldn't take too seriously, but anyway, you should look up Eric Dallo on that site as well. Yeah, it's crazy. But so let's see, what was the question again?
How does your day look like?
Yeah, so as you say, it's not my full-time job. That's very, but it is a full-time job. I'm doing it more than full-time. So I have this deal with my employer. So I'm working with a small consultancy named Agical. That is not too different from Jana, I would say, but it's not like focused on Clojure. It's focused on building stuff. I'm the only Clojure developer there, but we're very, very small, and we don't even have a sales organization, so people like had to find their own gigs and stuff like that. But even so, they have like cut out. So I get a full-time salary, but can work 80% as a contractor, and 20% I can devote to open source, and that's mostly Calva. So I have this situation where at least like one day a week, and today has been a lot of that for me. I can focus like with my day brain on open source issues, and then like I work remote. So I have very little overhead in terms of time, getting to work and getting back from work and stuff like that. So I can put in my 8 hours of work 4 days a week, and around that time I do whatever I want, of course. And mostly what I want to do is hack on open source stuff. So my day looks like I sleep like until I need to go up and work. There's no like ceremony there, and I do my work, and then at the end of the day, I usually write a small report, and then I pick up whatever open source thing and looking a bit at that. But then comes dinner, and my wife and I, we cook dinner together almost always, and we serve dinner, eat dinner, and then in my family, people are a lot like me, in that we all have our thing we want to do. Nerd. So for my
Rubik cube,
son, it's these these things, and my youngest daughter, she's doing clay and stuff like that. So it is like everyone goes and do their stuff. Of course, we're talking about like 8, 9 now. So for the kids, it's maybe they go to bed, but I don't. I just stay up until 12 or something like that.
And you continue
And hacking on Calva or something else.
So when you say something else beside Calva and Joyride, are you planning any new libraries, products?
And not quite like that so much. And Calva, Joyride doesn't need too much maintenance. We have a few things we want to make it do, but it's not in a hurry. It's just like it's super usable as it is, but it doesn't take too much maintenance work. But Calva, like that's a lot like speaking to the users and looking through issues, and so maybe most of the time it's not even coding. It's communicating with and then fixing stuff. So no particular thing, but Calva has this feature where there is another repository called Dram that where I publish small projects, and each project has a small manifest, like which files are there, and like some instruction how they should be open and stuff like that. And then Calva, when Calva starts, it goes there, picks up this the master manifest, and projects are here, and then Calva builds a menu. So from that menu you can find create a Clojure getting started project, for instance. That's I know actually a lot of people have actually started their Clojure journey using that one because it's interactive. Actually, you learn Clojure by evaluating and writing stuff in the editor, right? And then there are some small projects for just firing up a ClojureScript web browser app, and recently I added one that was like full stack shadow sale.js, based on Thomas Heller's excellent article about how he builds like his full stack stuff. So I like made a small instance of that. And now if you start Calva and you hit that REPL button in the status bar, you get a menu and you will see this. So that's a bit where I've been spending my project time. I'm thinking a lot in terms of how can I share my findings about how easy some things are. People think about them as hard, But sometimes they're actually quite easy. And if I realize that, then very often it doesn't hit Calva's like menu there, but I have lots of small template projects out there on GitHub.
Especially when you have the batteries included in a form of, for example, all the features of VS Code. So when you said I needed a timer, so in 10 lines of Joyride, I made a timer. That's it. Like in no other language, you could build a full timer in 10 lines of code. Yeah. So this might make a lot of things much easier. By the way, when you said that you know for sure that people used those micro apps to start with Clojure, so you are a father of 5. Have you shown Clojure to your kids? Have you tried to teach them programming?
Yeah, some. I was at Clojure D, like maybe it's 2 years ago, 3 years ago soon, and then Arne Brasser, I will watch his last name, Arne, of Lambda Island fame. He had a workshop around like using Clojure to hack your Minecraft environment. It was super fun. So that's one of those instances when I brought it to my kids, but they only wanted like to use it for and I should like hack it, like, so they didn't really pick it up, but they had me, okay, you do this, I need to go down to this dragon and I need these.
Yes.
So I used the REPL and just made things happen for them. They're not so much into programming yet. Maybe they will, but they are, as I said, very, very, very like me in that they find the things that they are interested in and think is fun, and then they just go full nerd on it. That's how I life as well. So, but it's different things than I nerd about.
Yes. So when I was a child, I loved building those like text adventure games, and my kids, they both like the game books. When you are like on page 38 and you can choose, and you go either to page 100 or 26. So we built a small engine in Clojure, and with one of my sons, we create games like this, like game books, where you make choices. So it's a finite state machine, basically, where you also remember the health and inventory. That's it. It's very simple. But he gets used to looking at the source code, even when like each page.
How old is he?
So this one is with 8 years old. I have 2 kids. One will be 10 and the other one is 8. So this is with the younger one, who is somehow more interested in that. But both of them are programming in Scratch and find it really enjoyable. But so this is what we did a lot, and I think it's a good way because it connects what he likes to do, what I like to do. We spend time together and we basically play, and he gets used to looking at the source code at the same time. Because there is like quite a jump from Scratch to full programming where you are writing text and you can't make any error. Like if your parentheses, even like something that's so uninteresting for children, like parentheses, must be absolutely correct. But it's a big switch where it takes a while, but at the same time, this works for me up to a certain level, but we will see if they will want to pick technologies and work in this field. All right. So now there is quite an interest in function languages in Nordic countries. Really, I see that it's more in Nordic countries than probably in any other place in the world. Why do you think it's like this?
Yeah, I mean it's an observation that maybe I've done that myself, like seen that, but it's really really hard to know why it would be like Finland, for instance. Why is it such like a closure nest, right? Uh, something, something about the Finnish psyche, maybe. But if you like generalize stuff like that and think about in terms of like nationality, psychology, then Finns are very different from
Uh-huh.
Swedes. Like Swedes and Danish people may be much more similar in how we like go about things than
Yes.
Finnish people are. But it's still something. So maybe it is not cultural. Maybe it is. I wouldn't know. But I know that in academia, in at least in Sweden, functional is a thing. I remember it from when I didn't go to the university. I started to work right after. This is high
Yeah.
school or whatever you call it, college. And but my friends went to the Royal Institute of Technology and stuff like that, and I was very like interested in what they were doing, and I know that they had like Erlang people there teaching them about that language, and they did a lot of like of their study into computer science using
Yeah.
Scheme. Uh, um, so I think like that kind of replenishment of people who take functional ideas like seriously out from these institutions, I think that has helped a lot. There's a professor today at the Royal Institute of Technology who is teaching in what is called like big systems programming or something like that. And he was doing this in Java for
Yes.
many years until he just like said, he went to his bosses and said, I won't do this in Java anymore. I will continue this if I can use Clojure. So now that course is done in Clojure. And I think at least 50 new Clojure people come out of that institution every year because of
Okay.
his work. So maybe that is and since it is in these like academic institutions, I think that's why we
Yeah.
have seen.
I
I think Scala is Swedish
yeah.
somewhere as well. I don't know. I
I
think it
have
is.
I have
Uh,
also a
I
theory,
think
but I don't know if it's legitimate or not. So I studied computer science and then I switched to study economics and I finished my master's in economics and business. And one of the absolutely interesting presentations I had was from one professor who so usually it's said that ideal team size is 7. It's like a mantra repeated over and over, which is calculated, let's say, an average for Europeans, Americans. We end up working in the teams of 7. But he said that it's actually not like a global constant for the ideal team size. And when they measure for one manager how many people you can have underneath and still keep track of everything what's happening and making sure everybody is working productively, there were huge differences um, between various. They based it on countries. I don't know if countries is the best measure, but let's say so. For example, what he said is that in India the constant of the ideal team size was 2 people. So, and he said that Indian Railway is the most bureaucratic institution that exists in the world, where practically half of employees are managers in some way. And the highest constant was in Nordic countries, where they often see that one manager can manage teams of 30 people without big problems, because people in those
yeah,
countries are more independent, more able to plan their work and achieve results. And more time can be spent achieving results instead of even like thinking how to organize yourself. You are adult enough to know how to communicate with others, and it might mean that people in those countries might be independent thinkers enough to find languages that are, let's say, that help you to achieve things and without big ceremony. And this is what seems to me functional languages are about, especially,
Yeah. A lot of it about it is like a trust issue. So Sweden and Nordic countries are high trust environment, and instead, if you're dealing with your colleagues, you know you're dealing with someone adult whose ideas you can take as seriously as your own ideas. So I think it's a function a bit about scalability in a sense. I think like self-organization scales much better than this hierarchical thing that people need to be managed. I don't think it is so much that this dude here needs to be managed more if he's an Indian. I think it's like the way they do stuff is that he's not allowed to do the thing the way he wants it. So they put a manager on him. Whether they would put a manager on me as well, I guess, in that sense, and then this from the bottom up, you have in Nordic countries, and I think also a lot in the US and stuff like that. You're allowed to self-organize. You also allow a lot in the Swedish context to solve the problem the best way you think it should be solved. So I get to choose my tools much more often, I think, in Sweden than I would in some other cultures. And that means that if I can see that a functional tool would solve my problem better, then it's a higher chance that I don't need to go to layers of managers and convince them like that this should be done. Very often I can choose my tools and
often what I see with developers, it's not just culture. It's culture. It might be skill set. Historically, if you lived in the place where the nature is constantly trying to kill you, you must have been more independent and more able to find ways how to survive. So maybe it has played a certain role in the development of that culture and skills, let's say.
I think I found this like in parenting, like there's something called like Scandinavian parenting. That is, I don't know if you know, but the philosophy that's named taking children seriously, and like it's if I look at that philosophy, it's what I think about as Scandinavian parenting. And Scandinavian parenting is like you treat your kids very much like you would treat some colleague, your spouse, whoever. It means like you don't like tell them what to do. You trust them, you value their ideas and all that. So that's very much like Scandinavian.
It makes perfect sense.
Parenting. Traced it back to and found like evidence of that being a thing already like 1,000 years ago. So the Vikings had this mentality. This was how they brought up their children, and then was like in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was like a collapse of that for more authoritative parenting, but it waned off, and now we're actually back to what the Vikings did in a sense. I think I'm not sure. Don't quote me too much on it, but I think this plays into how we treated as kids, plays into how we treat each other on the workplace and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, agreed. So I have another question. Who should we interview next?
Yeah, so that one is easy for me because right now I'm just like a follower of Christian Johansson. So I would say you should interview Christian Johansson next. He is like very, very, in a sense, impersonating like the Clojure mindset. So everything, when you think about Clojure being like practical, being data oriented, being functional, everything he does and he gives to us. He's an open source developer. It has these right thing. So the latest thing he did is Replicant. I don't know if you have tried it. But I'm using it at work, and that's where I found it because my clients use Replicant.
Okay.
And so it's like reagent, but minus the local state stuff, minus React. It's a pure ClojureScript VDOM.
Okay.
So that's like an empty dependency map. So when you bring in Replicant, you don't bring in anything else. And it has like 0 opinions that it poses on you. It's a library, so you get to choose how you should wield it. And it's only like Christian is data oriented and so there's no point in using this tool if you're not going to do it functional. So in a sense, it forces you to.
Good thing is that this is idiomatic Clojure, how it should look like. So it's actually it's great. Okay.
So so I think he made this talk to a Java Zone in Oslo, 23, I think, where he introduces and talks about his ideas around how to build front ends with this mindset. That was before he created Replicant. So I can really recommend watching that talk. And he's also like spreading it outside of Clojure. So a lot of like Clojure advocacy is like within the Clojure community.
Yes.
But we also need people like Christian that can articulate these things in ways that can be understood by members of other programming communities.
Great. Now, how can people support you?
Yeah, keep supporting me. I'm super well supported by this community. As I said before, like people are sharing me on, like just expressing to me how much they like what I'm doing. So that is what I feed from. Actually, that's where I get the energy from. Of course, I would like to be able to work more on it. I have this like 20% deal today. For me, I would love to be doing this full time, like does it. But I'm not as sharp as board is. But so like contributing in that sense as well. And I think like if more companies could look at the Calva project and what I'm doing and thinking about what it means to their companies, they could like follow Nubank's lead and contribute like significantly to it. So that would be that would make a difference. And as I said, I can't really do the big things in the settings. So that would maybe enable me to do
to work on Calva full time.
And of course, storing the Calva repository, filing issues on Calva when you find that it doesn't do what you expect it to do, and contribute. I mean, we're trying to do Calva very openly. It's just not open. We're like developing it in the open. So anyone can just like join with just a small PR or sit for many
translate
more
documentation to other languages, maybe.
together with
Yeah.
Say again?
Translate the documentation to other languages and all.
That could help. Yeah, I haven't thought about that. How much that could do, but that's someone wants to help with that.
So when I was
Also, just looking at the documentation, I often get like people say that the documentation is very good, and I mean that makes me happy. I think it's good, but it's also a lot of things I can realize when I get questions. Like, okay, the documentation is not answering this question, so it's lacking. So even if it's not like translating it, having a look at it and see how it could be improved, that would be.
Yeah, for the translations, just when I was a child, I didn't know English, but I was already programming based on books in Czech language and various examples and translating it manually word by word. And actually, I was learning Vim and Emacs from tutorials somebody wrote in Czech language. So for younger people who might want to start programming, this might help them. Like when you are an adult developer, you need English. There is no way around it. But when you are a child who is into tech, this might actually bring new users. So if people are listening to this, yes, mainly contributing financially, then as you said, let's say filing issues or creating issues, sending PRs, maybe helping to spread the word in other languages. Great. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's speak again in the future.
Yeah, it was way too long before we had this chat.
Yes, indeed. All right. Thank you and have a great day.